Consider, Seath is an escaped slave, and her children were all born in slave-owning Kentucky. Their escape to Ohio was like the Israelites' escape from Egypt in Exodus, except that this time Pharaoh shows up on the doorstep threatening to drag them back across the Red Sea. So Seath decides to save her children from slavery by killing them, succeeding with only one of them. Later, when that murdered child, the title character of Toni Morrison's Beloved, makes her ghostly return, she's more than simply the child lost to violence, sacrificed to the revulsion of the escaped slave toward her former state. Instead, she is one of, in the words of the epigraph to the novel, the 60 million and more African and African descended slaves who died in captivity in forced marches on the continent or in the middle of the passage on the plantations made possible by their slaves' labor or in attempt to escape a system that should have been unthinkable as, for instance, a mother seeing no other means of rescuing her child except infanticide. Beloved is in fact representative of the horrors to which a whole race was subjected. Violence is one of the most personal and even intimate acts between human beings, but it can also be cultural and societal in its implications. It can be symbolic, thematic, biblical, Shakespearean, romantic, allegorical, transcendent. Violence in real life just is. If someone punches you in the nose in a supermarket parking lot, it's simply aggression. It doesn't contain meaning beyond the act itself. Violence in literature, though, while it is literal, is usually also something else. That same punch in the nose may be a metaphor. Robert Frost has a poem, Out, about a momentary lapse of attention and the terrible act of violence that ensues. A farm boy working with the buzzsaw looks up at the call to dinner, and the saw, which has been full of menace as it snarls and rattles along, seizes the moment as if it has a mind of its own to take off the boy's hand. Now, the first thing we have to acknowledge about this masterpiece is that it is absolutely real. Only a person who has been around the ceaseless danger of farm machinery could have written the poem, with all its careful attention to detail of the way death lurks in everyday tasks. If that's all we get from the poem, fine. The poem will in one sense have done its job. Yet Frost is insisting on more in the poem than a cautionary tale of child labor and power tools. The literal violence encodes a broader point about the essential hostility, or at least uncaring relationship we have with the universe. Our lives and deaths, the boy dies of blood loss and shock, are as nothing to the universe, of which the best that can be said of it is indifferent, though it may be actively interested in our demise. The title of the poem is taken from Macbeth, Out, brief candle, suggesting the brevity not merely of the teenager's life, but of any human existence, particularly in cosmic terms. The smallness and fragility of our lives is met with the cold indifference not only of the distant stars and planets, which we can rightly think of as virtually eternal in contrast to ourselves, but of the more immediate outer world of the farm itself, of the inhumanity of machinery which wounds or kills indiscriminately.